Is it fair to say that in order for this to also improve, we have to leave the freedom to fail up to the populace as well, or else we're going to other regimes that are controlling their people? If I'm trying to make any influence in the country, like for myself, I grew up in a family welfare. I think sometimes when we try to encourage the populace to do something, if we go the route of more entitlement, but the kid is coming home to the wrong mindset, nothing is changing. So how much is this to work on the parents of the 8-year-old PBD or the 12-year-old Ray Dalio? How much of it is on the parents to want to also do something about it and want to pick up a book, want to develop themselves, as it is on the kid? Because I think we're forgetting the influence of who the kid is going home to. How do we influence them?
Well, I think you've just said, I want to emphasize the things that you said, because that's the American dream, okay? The American dream is made up of the fact that you own it. You acquired early on the good guidance from adults, ideally your parents, and you had an education system that was a fair education system that you can get through, and there you went. And then you had you and your self-discovery process and your character that allowed you to do that. And in the process of doing that, not only did you take care of yourself, you produced such great outcomes in the results that the consequence, you were a real net contributor. And so when we look at we have to make these people net contributors unless somebody's handicapped. If somebody can't, for whatever their inability, and that's a social program, you have to give those other people essentially the opportunity to struggle well, to be able to struggle well and to develop the character and the capabilities that come from struggling well. That's the formula. So we agree on that formula. And so if we have a situation where we're failing, because you can go to school districts, and I know the school districts, in which they can't afford each kid to have a book, enough books, or in some places, not enough to have pencils, each kid having adequate pencils. So they break them in half and sharpen them from both directions so that they can get by in doing that. And you have that, and we look at it, we just don't look in the mirror and say, what can we give them to have that equal opportunity? We have a problem, because the way it's now laid out to me, it looks like, is that there is one political party or one view that becomes extremely one way, that in terms of saying, okay, how do you create that desire, that opportunity, that need to be productive and don't give just the money, give the means by which you're going to operate. And you have another political party who is saying, I will not deal with restructuring it so that we produce the outcomes that are necessary to create that education and create that equal opportunity. So when I look at each one of them, it's a scary choice, because I don't think that either of them is creating that process. And unless we come to do it and we'd stop talking like corporations are bad, or billionaires are bad. You know, most
That's the language today.
Most billionaires became. I'm an accidental billionaire, and most people became billionaires because what they did is they produced something of value that people wanted. Whether it's millionaires, or just earning a good job, you're producing something that someone wants, and in producing something that someone wants, they pay you for it. And the more you produce that somebody wants, the more they pay you. And that's the way the system is. And that entrepreneurship and all of that is a very important thing. That's why equal opportunity. People from all over the world came to the United States for that. Okay, so now if we can agree on that, and how do we do that, deal with it in a way where together we're working on that, rather than just trying to kill the other and then undermining that. We won't fix ourselves, and we need to fix ourselves. Because if you're looking at the world and you're saying, okay, now you're competing with the world, you're competing with China, one way or another, we got to make our system work well.
Then the follow-up question for you would be in this area is, I read a book a few years ago by Lawrence Miller titled Barbarians to Bureaucrats. Never sold a lot of copies, great book. And he says how there's the prophet first, the visionary first, and then there's the barbarians. I'll go out there and make it happen. Sometimes a prophet is also the barbarian, like maybe a Steve Jobs. So prophet, barbarian, builder, explorer, administrator, bureaucrat, aristocrat. Okay, so America's kind of getting at this phase of bureaucrat, aristocrat.
That's right.
That's what we are, right?
That's right.
But then he says, that during these times is when you can give birth to a synergist, right? That brings it together. Where does the synergist come to bring the left and the right together? Because the media is not playing the synergist. The media is kind of dividing a little
That's
bit.
right.
So
okay.
who becomes a synergist?
No, but I think he's created what is a beautiful description, and I will ask, having read history and watched dynasties rise and decline and empires rise and decline, I have never seen the synergist.
You've never seen the synergist?
I've never seen the synergist. So I want an example of the synergist. What I have seen happen over and over again is this decline. He's describing that notion, also one generation to another. That what happens is, it's the person who doesn't have anything, works hard, accomplishes something, has it, and so on. The synergist, I've never seen the synergist. All I've seen in history is these people deteriorating, that leadership deteriorating, and those people fighting. That's what I've seen repeatedly in history. That's what I'm saying it happened in the 1930s, but it happened. I've studied this going back, literally I wanted to study the last 500 years to understand the rises and declining of empires. And if I go to, I've studied before this the British Empire, before that the Dutch Empire, I studied the Spanish Empire, I studied the dynasties in China, and they all have the same paths. They all basically have the same paths. And those paths are...
It's not an optimistic...
It's the same thing as even companies. It's a company path, or think of a multi-generational family. The first generation makes it, they work hard. The second generation, and that's why they go from the saying, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, okay? If you think about the company, the corporation starts with an entrepreneur, and then it goes to the cycle he's describing, and then you get to the bureaucrat, okay? And then somebody who's the entrepreneur and scrappy, like you or whatever, those people, come up and they're the revolutionaries, and they tear it down because they come up with better ways of doing it. And those are what the patterns look like.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now, let's continue.
You said in an interview you're not competitive, but you're driven. You used the word
I'm
driven.
passionate.
Okay.
So, I'm curious and I'm passionate.
How involved are you in encouraging this conversation and dialogue to take place? If you think income inequality and wealth inequality and opportunity inequality, if you think those 3 are a national crisis, how come national emergency, how come you're not leading that charge to bring and unify the groups together? Because you have credibility and you have a resume for people to say...
My ability, look, power comes with the extent of the role. I'm at a stage, so I'll step back and I'll describe what my perspective is.
You know what I'm asking, though.
Sure. And I'm trying to answer it. And like any of my answers, you have to bear with me because they take a couple of minutes. Okay. The first is where I am in my life. I think there are 3 phases in one's life. First phase is you're dependent on others and you're learning. Then you go out in the world and you're increasingly, others become dependent on you and you're working and you're trying to be successful. Then you approach the 3rd phase, where I'm in a phase where I'm going to my 3rd phase. And in that 3rd phase, my goal is to have other people be successful without me. And that's like extends to your kids, extends to other things. So the reason I'm passing along these things is because I hope that they're helpful. The reason we're doing this interview, I'm not doing it for money, okay? I'm not doing it for any other reason, that I hope it's helpful. And so I'm passing that along. It's so much dependent on other people to make their choices. One crusader is going to come in there. I'm not running for president. I'm not going to be in that position of control. That is not where I am. I'm just hoping that I could pass along my thoughts for people to take it or leave it, and leave it up to them, right? So do I want to build what? Do I want to run for government or anything? We're in a situation, if you don't have your hands on the levers of power, it doesn't matter, okay?
So,
because
I agree.
Because you can only have to convince the people who have their hands on the lever of power. So the only thing I could do is give my best thoughts for people to take it or leave it, and that's where I am.
So do you think there's any room today for a media company to come out that is Walter Cronkite-esque, a platform that's not Fox, that's not CNN, MSNBC, Time, whoever it is, Washington Post, that's in the middle, where somebody can go to and say, you know what, I don't know if I'm a Democrat, but I don't know if I agree, but makes sense, I'm a Republican, that's kind of do you think we need something there where people to go to say, these guys are pretty independently thinking and they're stating the facts?
Absolutely. Do I think it will happen? Probably not.
Why do you say that?
History has shown me, and also I study psychology and neuroscience as to how the brain works and how habit and community decision making in a psychological neurological way is very much that you start with your conclusion and one filters consistent with the conclusion, and there's affinity groups and so on. And so I think that just the notion of that population deviating from that, and also the mechanics of sensationalism in terms of what sells,
yes,
that it produces a dynamic in which the media itself is not going for
what
that.
A way of processing this.
And the economics itself of the media is such that it doesn't sell, it doesn't support itself. I don't think there's a large enough market. And I think it's being exemplified by the power of extremism or illogical emotional behavior.
So it almost needs to be somebody that wants to contribute rather than wanting to profit from it.
But I don't even know how big the market is.
Would you buy it? Would you subscribe to it?
Well, of course. I had one of my sons came up with a media platform, but what he would do was it was an online, so I'll pass the idea along. I thought it was a terrific idea. Just a social site that he called it The Issue. That was the name of the company. And it's an on-site, and on that issue, whenever there was a controversial point of view, all he would do was find the smartest people who held different points of view on that. And he would put together 2 or 3 of those, which had then the opposite point of view on that. And you would look at that, and so you could say, I'm interested in the issue, and seeing both. And by the way, anybody can do this, so I'll pass it on to the world.
Yeah,
and you could just.
I hope somebody gets inspired.
I hope somebody gets inspired to do that. So you could then say, I can get informed on both sides of the perspective of that issue. I was supporting a major correspondent type of person to bring on to have the name of the show was going to be In Pursuit of Truth. And they would find opposing points of view on any issue and have the thoughtful debate about those issues. The first one, we did actually a pilot for it, and it was called, I picked the most controversial point of view, God, reality, or delusion. Now, I picked that. You could take this thing or that, whatever the rule, pick the most controversial things and have a civil conversation about those types of things in terms of seeing both sides of the issue. It's a real big thing for me.
I think Dennis Prager did a little bit of that with Thomas Sowell. When I was in LA, we'd go to Wayne Hughes' house, and he would bring all these guys from both sides, like Obama's campaign manager versus Bush's campaign manager, and they'd go at it, and it was beautiful. It's like you're sitting in a classroom taking notes.
Beautiful.
I got one question and
and then you realize issues are more complicated than they can be made.
Exactly.
Right?
And then you see similarities.
I know.
Similarities. We're like, wow, these guys have more in common than you thought, and they walk away liking each other.
Yeah.
And these are smaller settings.
Yeah, let's book our agreements. Let's get the agreement stuff
knock
done.
that away.
So could we agree that better education is an important thing? Could we agree on those problems and then work together for that? Man, that's where we need to go.
Yes. Last question, and then I'll do speed run, and then we're done. Process of replacing yourself as a CEO. I know you've spoken about it, but now it's a little bit deeper because it's different than you wrote in the book, than even articles you've written in the last 2 years. I'm curious where you are right now. If you had to go over again to replace yourself and bring another CEO, and you're the founder, so emotionally you're attached, it's your culture, your principles, how do you process and what are you thinking about to get somebody to bring in, and what are you looking for? Is it internal, external? Are you comfortable external being a CEO? How do you process replacement of CEO for you?
Let me again start with the big particular picture. It is stupid to be attached to the ways that should be done, or attached to one doing the job of being a CEO. That is a stupid thing, because there's a certain life arc and we evolve. And as I say, to go to the third phase and let them go to the second, and that's why helping others be successful without you is the higher objective. So first you have to start, and you say that because it's like your children. Let's say you have adult children. You know, your parents, the best thing that could happen is they smile and they look at you and they see how you've evolved along those ways. So you have to want that. That becomes your arc. The second thing is that you have to realize that, like anything, if you haven't done something, I have a principle. If you haven't done something 3 times before successfully, don't assume you know how to do it. So along those lines, as you start off, you have to allow enough time for mistakes and learning that's going to come along the way in order to be able to make that transition successfully. And I learned that over there. You know, it was a process. First time around, it didn't work. Second time around, but we all learn, because all these experiences are learning. That's the purpose of them all. So it's okay to fail a few of these times, and then to get there as long as you eventually get there. And then you have to, you know, help them. So, you know, enable them. Enablement is the word, not control. Enable. Be a mentor. How hard is that
for a personality like you to do?
Oh, it's so great. It's all partnership. If the first sentences in this book that I wrote, first of all, understand that I'm a dumb shit. And anything that I haven't
done shit. You're saying like you have to.
No, I'm a dumb shit.
Oh, you're a dumb shit.
In other words, that what I mean is that any success I've had in my life has been more due to my knowing how to deal with what I don't know than due to anything I know. Okay? Once you start to realize that, and the power does not just bottled up in your own head, okay, and you can draw upon the best, then you change your approach to life. And I'd say it's the opposite. The greatest tragedy of mankind, or the greatest tragedy of individuals who together make up mankind in their dealing with each other, is they have bottled up in their heads wrong opinions that they don't know how to stress test, because they think if it's in their heads, it's right, if they have an opinion. And it's so easy to get around that if you can think about, how do I go beyond that with So the reason I'm saying that is I love partnerships in which there's a back and forth and you knock things around and you get to the right answer, where there's open-mindedness and learning at the same time as there's the assertiveness as you're trying to figure things out together.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members, where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active, and see you on the other side.